What's up, guys? We finally made it to Peru. It was a long trip to get here. We moved in the middle of last year, but it's been a journey. We moved from New Jersey, and we're planning to live here minimum of 3 years, but we might live here for 4 years, depending on my wife's job. And that's actually the reason we're here, because my wife had to move for work. Can't really get into the details of exactly what she does, but it's not that hard to figure out. Um, we're on this nice path on the one wheel, doing a little grocery run, and just start off the first vlog talking about pros and cons about living in Peru. We obviously live in a very beautiful place. So we're in Miraflores, which is a neighborhood in Lima, the capital. This area is mostly, expats, not a lot of locals. This is a big, tourist area. So you see a lot more, tourists. And less locals that actually live in the area. But some of the major pros of living in Lima are the weather. There's basically only two seasons. It's summer and it's winter, but winter never gets that cold. I think the lowest it was maybe 40s, low 40s, but back in Jersey you'd get so much snow and it could go to zero sometimes. Or I guess that'd be rare, but it could get into the teens at least. There are also no mosquitoes. I guess it's just the climate and the location, but mosquitoes just don't exist, so you never really have to worry about them. You can wear whatever you want and not get bit. Also, because of my wife's job, we have a huge apartment, a major upgrade from where we were living back in Jersey. So you can't really beat the ocean view, Also, we have air conditioning and own laundry and dryer, which is not super common for, people that live in Peru, but because, it's we're Americans, so we need that American standard. And living in Miraflores, we have a ton of access to restaurants, and because it's a city, things are not too far apart. We can walk basically wherever we want to go, and if it's too far, we can just Uber. So it's not a big deal, but the fact that we don't have to drive so much is amazing. We never really lived in a huge city, and going from the suburbs where you have to drive everywhere, essentially, you can't really walk most places. It's just huge life improvement, just being able to walk and run and bike and one wheel, so it's crazy, the amount of restaurants, but also the fact that the quality of the restaurant is so high. The number 2 restaurant in the world is a 30-minute walk from our apartment. Central, we already ate there once. It was amazing. But definitely a place where you probably can eat there once in your. That's probably enough, because it's really expensive. And it's weird. The location of Central is the street is really busy and it's dirty, and it's you can barely breathe because it's all exhaust, but it's hidden behind a huge wall, and you wouldn't even know it's there unless you were looking for it. And the other nice thing about living in a city is that you can get basically anything delivered, which I guess you could back in Jersey, but it'd be much more expensive. But here it's really cheap and easily accessible. And there's so many different snacks. Some of them they have in the States, like Inca corn. That's what they call it, at least at Trader Joe's. But it's like the big corn that's like, it's like a corn nut, but not as hard, and it's bigger, but it's really good. Um, oh yeah, it basically never rains, at least in Lima. They'll have, little bit of misting during the night or early morning, but we've never experienced any heavy rain. So you never really have to worry about your plans getting rain checked, because it won't ever rain enough to cancel your plans. The area we live in is relatively safe. I wouldn't consider it any more dangerous than like New York City or anything like that. Obviously, there are definitely more dangerous areas, but that goes for anywhere you live. The food is very good, even on like the lowest level, the like cheaper restaurants. You can get really good empanadas. You can get really good local Peruvian food, lomo saltado. You can get Peruvian chicken. All of that is really good, and cheap. And just the fact that we don't have to deal with because the bread and even in the States, just in the grocery store, is so bad. It's so crappy. But here there's ton of bakeries, and there's a really good bakery, El Pan de la Chola, but they do really good sourdough, and it's a game changer, when you can have really good sourdough. Like, I made sourdough in the past, but sometimes it's just like a hassle. But the ability to buy a whole loaf for basically $4 is kind of insane. Because back in the States, it costs like probably like $8 or $10 for like a good sourdough loaf. So it's life changing. Fruits. Fruits are crazy good just because a lot of these fruits are grown here, so there's not much, travel time. There's not much, they don't have to treat the fruits as much because it's not traveling as far, and so the taste is amazing. The mangoes are amazing. Apples, blueberries, and then all the fruits that you couldn't even get if you wanted to in the States. Passion fruit, different types of passion fruit, different types of melons, and you can get it at the regular grocery store. You're gonna see once you go in the grocery store. But yeah, just access to amazing fruits that just taste so much better than they would in the States. And they still have Korean food. There's a couple Korean restaurants that we've been to, and they're all pretty decent, and there's Korean markets that are, they're close by the Korean restaurants, but they're not that close to us. Okay, some of the cons, driving. Driving is a bit annoying just because the rules are so different, or they're pretty different. It's like, and it's a lot of the unspoken rules, like back in the States, you have right of way, straight, right, left. There's an order to things, you don't just go. But in Peru, you kind of just gotta go, it's like, it's the opposite. Basically, if people that are turning feel that they have the right of way, so they'll see a car coming pretty close and they'll just pull out. They don't really care. So you kind of got to get used to that. But in the city, people drive pretty slow, so it's not that big a deal. You just kind of have to get used to it, like anywhere else, I guess. Uber can be sort of unreliable. I feel like back in the States, if you canceled rides a lot, the app would kind of punish you for that, but maybe, I don't know, maybe that's not true anymore. But basically, yeah, sometimes you'll wait for an Uber for like, 20, 30 minutes if it's like at a bad time. it is not really a great option to use the local taxis too, just because you kind of have to haggle the rate before you start your ride. So if you can't really get it down to a good price, then you're just gonna get overcharged like crazy. The airport has a ton of issues. So when we got here, we got one of our carry-on stolen in customs. Yeah, I mean, they never admitted it, but we basically knew it was an intentional decision to target us, because we had like 14 bags on us, and so they forced us to go through customs when we actually didn't have to, but we just didn't know at the time. Yeah, so they forced us into customs, and they put our bags through the scanners, but then they also had another family purposely come right behind us and chuck all their bags right behind our bags, and in the shuffle of us trying to grab our bags and put them back on the cart, the bag was stolen, and then before we could even count the bags, they separated me and my wife. They said, you have to bring this computer over because you have to pay tax on it. But then we didn't end up paying taxes on it because we never had to, because that was a lie and they just wanted to separate us. And then once I met up with my wife after that fake, pay for the taxes on this, we counted the bags and we're one short, and then we knew that the people behind us took it, but they really wouldn't cooperate. Like, we asked for the security footage, and they took 30 minutes to receive the security footage, even though we asked literally right after it happened. Obviously they're just stalling for time. Yeah, so we never got our bag back. We filed the police report, but at least we had insurance. Insurance is always helpful in those kind of cases. But pro tip: watch your bag, keep it close when you're at the airport, because there's always a chance. I think they've mostly figured out that stealing from non-locals is not great for overall tourism, so I think it's mostly been done with. But yeah, I would still keep the bag close, because you never know. And there's, oh my gosh, there's the solicitation at the airport is insane. So if you don't have if you don't hire a private driver to take you from the airport to hotel or wherever you're living, then, because it's basically your driver will once they find you, they'll basically protect you from all these solicitors. Because we took Uber once, and the moment you get out, there's a million people trying to pull you this way, pull you that way, ask for the taxi. But then there's also guys waiting in the taxi area, and they're waiting next to your Uber that will follow you to the car. They'll literally grab the bags out of your hand to put them in the car, which is what you were already gonna do. And then after they grab your bags out of your hand and put them in the car, then they'll immediately ask for money, even though it's something that you already were gonna do in the first place. So you gotta watch out for that. You gotta be kind of aggressive. You gotta box these guys out, because they really won't take no for an answer. So you gotta protect your bag in the airport and outside the airport. And then obviously, in the supermarket, they're not gonna have everything that they had back in the States. So they don't have, it's really hard to find non-dairy ice cream, and that's something we ate a lot of back in the States. And sometimes you pay, if you're paying cash in an informal place, they'll charge you, the foreigner price in the Inca market and stuff, where you buy souvenirs. And then tipping culture has infiltrated Peru as well. I think partially because of tourists, but yeah, tipping is such a weird thing. In the States, it's very ingrained, you know? You tip for almost everything. But, you know, a lot of other countries, it's not a big thing, you know? You build it into the cost of the good. And so you don't have to pay a tip, but sometimes the cost of the good is more expensive, but I much rather have that versus, you know, trying to figure out some unwritten rule on the amount of the tip and all of this. But yeah, you have to deal with tipping in Peru. I mean, some people don't tip, I guess. You can do that too, but overall, yeah, you still have to do the same thing where you're trying to figure out what's the right amount of tip, you know, even in Peru. Yes, and so Lima is also very humid. We have two dehumidifiers in the house that run constantly. I empty out each of them at least twice, maybe sometimes 3 times in a day. And then you gotta make sure to empty it out before you go to sleep because it has this really loud beeping you can't turn off whenever it gets full. But yeah, if you don't run the dehumidifier, then a lot of your stuff will just get moldy. Clothes, anything basically. And then in the supermarket, like this is your run-of-the-mill supermarket, you know. Obviously they have their big open-air markets, but just a supermarket, for good reason, doesn't really have a lot of ingredients to cook other different foods from different cultures, which I understand. You know, it's Peru. They're not gonna have a ton of access to, you know, all the specific ingredients you need to make, you know, pad thai or even kimchi jjigae. But yeah, compared to the U.S., which, you know, so many different, you know, it's very diverse, so many different ethnicities living in different areas, you can get most things, but can't really do that even in Lima. This is a big one. Locals, Peruvians walk so slow on the sidewalk. It's kind of insane. And it's not even like the speed of the walking, because obviously, you know, it's different, you know, especially in the States, people like to walk faster, but it's the fact that they will walk slow and then they'll walk shoulder to shoulder and take up the entire sidewalk. So like a family of 4 can take up the entire sidewalk. You literally can't walk past them unless you know, like flag them down and tell them, you know, you need a little room to pass. But the funniest thing is that they won't ever, like, they'll continue doing that. They'll continue the shoulder to shoulder formation, blocking the entire sidewalk the whole time they're walking, you know. Until there's something that prohibits them from walking shoulder to shoulder, they will always move back into that formation. It's like amazing to see, you know, like there's people coming both ways, you know, they're passing, but also people walking the opposite way, and then as soon as they leave, they'll move back. And I get it, you know, you don't want to talk to your family or your friends, but you can do that without walking shoulder to shoulder. And you know, you don't need to walk. And these people, you know, you're walking for like an hour, 30 minutes. You don't need to be talking the entire time. I don't know, or at least make some room where it's not impossible to you know, pass. And then obviously we're farther away from family, so you miss family, and you miss, you know, all the US based food chains that you can't really find here, you know. It doesn't exist over here. But overall, the food is good, so you don't really, you know, you can find most equivalents. There's certain things that you can't find exactly the same or as easy, I guess. And it definitely helps that we still have decent access to like Amazon, other online retailers, because I think for most people it's difficult, or Amazon packages take a long time. It can take months to get here, but for us it only takes max like a couple weeks. Sometimes it comes a little faster. But yeah, you know, overall, Peru, Lima, you know, yeah. We visited other places, but most of our experiences in Lima, in Miraflores, especially now, because the riots and protesting. It's not as safe in the center of the city. But yeah, it's a nice place to live. We enjoy the ocean view. We can get around anywhere we want, really, and we have, our young son with us. He's almost 2, and he loves it. He gets to go to the park every day and never gets rained out or anything like that. But yeah, thanks for listening and watching. I'll see you in the next one.